Here's something most people struggling with hair loss have never been told, and it could completely change how you look at thinning hair. What if the real problem isn't your shampoo, your genetics, or even your age, but a silent hormone that's shrinking your hair follicles every single day? And what if one simple seed oil could naturally block that process without harsh drugs or side effects? Hi, Dr. Berg, DC, and today I want to talk about a powerful, overlooked oil that acts as a natural DHT blocker and supports thicker, stronger hair from the inside out. Let's start with the real enemy of hair growth. DHT, or dihydrotestosterone, is a very potent form of testosterone. In people who are genetically sensitive, DHT binds to receptors in the scalp and slowly shrinks hair follicles. Over time, those follicles produce thinner and thinner hair until they stop producing hair altogether. That's why hair loss is progressive. It doesn't happen overnight. It's a slow miniaturization process driven by hormones. Most conventional solutions try to block DHT with medications. And while those drugs may reduce DHT, they often come with unwanted side effects because they interfere with hormones system-wide. What many people don't realize is that nature already provides a gentler way to reduce DHT activity without shutting down your hormones. This is where pumpkin seed oil comes in. Pumpkin seed oil has been studied for its ability to naturally inhibit the enzyme 5-alpha reductase. This is the enzyme that converts testosterone into DHT. When you slow this enzyme down, you reduce excess DHT at the scalp. Less DHT means less follicle shrinkage, and that means hair has a chance to stay thick, strong, and anchored. What makes pumpkin seed oil unique is that it doesn't wipe out DHT completely. Your body still needs small amounts of DHT for normal function. Pumpkin seed oil simply helps bring things back into balance. That's a big difference. There was a clinical study where men with hair thinning took pumpkin seed oil daily, and the group using the oil experienced significantly increased hair count compared to placebo. That's not marketing hype. That's physiology, but the benefits don't stop with DHT blocking. Pumpkin seed oil is rich in zinc, and zinc is absolutely critical for hair growth. Deficiency is one of the most common and overlooked causes of hair shedding. Without enough zinc, hair follicles can't properly divide, repair, or grow. Zinc is also required to regulate hormones and support the immune system of the scalp. This oil also contains powerful antioxidants that protect hair follicles from oxidative stress. Oxidative stress damages the follicle environment and accelerates hair loss. When you reduce inflammation and oxidative damage, you create a healthier scalp where hair can actually grow. Another key benefit is improved blood flow. Hair follicles need oxygen and nutrients. Pumpkin seed oil supports nitric oxide production, which helps improve circulation to the scalp. Better circulation means more nutrients reaching the follicle and more waste being removed. Now let's talk about how this fits into the bigger picture. Hair loss is never caused by just one thing. It's usually a combination of DHT sensitivity, nutrient deficiencies, inflammation, insulin resistance, and stress hormones like cortisol. Pumpkin seed oil addresses multiple angles at once. It helps with hormones, nutrients, and inflammation. If you're consuming a diet high in refined carbs and seed oils that promote inflammation, your insulin levels stay elevated. High insulin increases androgen activity, including DHT. So even if you're using a natural DHT blocker, you also need to stabilize blood sugar. That means cutting sugar, refined grains, and processed foods. Protein is also essential. Hair is made of keratin, which is protein. If you're not eating enough high-quality protein, no oil or supplement will save your hair. The follicle simply won't have the raw materials to build hair. Stress is another hidden factor. Chronic stress raises cortisol, and cortisol directly interferes with hair growth cycles. Pumpkin seed oil won't cancel stress, but reducing inflammation and supporting nutrient status makes your body more resilient. So how to use pumpkin seed oil? You can take it internally as a supplement or liquid oil. Look for cold-pressed pumpkin seed oil, not refined. You can also apply it topically to the scalp. When massaged into the scalp, it may help locally reduce DHT activity and improve circulation. The key is consistency. Hair growth takes time. Follicles need months, not days, to recover. This is not a magic overnight cure. Anyone promising instant regrowth is misleading you. What this oil does is slow down hair loss and support regrowth by addressing the root cause. If you catch hair loss early, the results are much better. Once a follicle is completely dead, it cannot be revived. But weakened follicles can often recover when you remove the stressors and provide the right nutrients. The biggest mistake people make is waiting too long, or focusing only on external treatments while ignoring internal chemistry. Hair loss is not just a scalp issue, it's a metabolic and hormonal issue. Pumpkin seed oil works because it respects the body's natural balance. It doesn't force anything, it supports the system. If you're dealing with thinning, hair, shedding, or a widening part, this is one of the most natural tools you can add to your routine. Combine it with proper nutrition, blood sugar control, stress reduction, and adequate minerals, and you give your hair the best possible environment to thrive. If you found this helpful, make sure to subscribe, and I'll keep sharing the real root causes behind hair loss and what actually works to fix them. Gave 3 keynotes about script. Here are 3 clear keynotes aligned with the script, written in a natural, conversational way. The real driver behind most hair loss isn't aging or shampoo, it's excess DHT shrinking hair follicles over time, and stopping that conversion early is the key to preserving thickness and preventing permanent follicle damage. Pumpkin seed oil works as a gentle, natural DHT blocker by slowing the 5-alpha reductase enzyme while simultaneously supplying zinc, antioxidants, and anti-inflammatory compounds that strengthen follicles and support healthy scalp circulation. Hair regrowth only happens when hormones, nutrition, blood sugar, and stress are addressed together, and pumpkin seed oil is most effective when combined with adequate protein, mineral balance, and reduced inflammation for long-term results. Most people think hair loss is just something that happens with age, or that it's locked into their genetics and there's nothing they can do about it. They blame shampoo, hard water, hats, or even styling products. But none of those are the real driver behind most cases of thinning hair. The real issue starts much deeper, at the hormonal level, and it revolves around one powerful hormone that quietly damages hair follicles over time. That hormone is DHT. DHT, or dihydrotestosterone, is not a bad hormone by itself. Your body actually needs it in small amounts. It's derived from testosterone through an enzyme called 5-alpha reductase. This conversion happens naturally in the body, especially in tissues like the scalp, skin, and prostate. The problem begins when too much DHT builds up in areas that are genetically sensitive to it, especially the scalp. If you're genetically predisposed, your hair follicles have a high sensitivity to DHT. When DHT binds to receptors in those follicles, it sends a signal that gradually weakens them. This doesn't cause hair to fall out immediately. Instead, it slowly shrinks the follicle in a process called miniaturization. Each new hair cycle produces a thinner, weaker hair shaft. Over time, the growth phase becomes shorter, the resting phase becomes longer, and eventually the follicle stops producing visible hair. This is why hair loss is progressive. It's not sudden. It happens silently over years. By the time most people notice thinning, recession, or excessive shedding, the process has already been going on for a long time. That's also why early intervention is critical. Once a follicle is completely destroyed, it cannot be revived. But if the follicle is only weakened, there's still a window of opportunity. What's important to understand is that DHT doesn't attack all hair equally. That's why hair on the sides and back of the head often remains thick, while the crown and hairline thin out. Those follicles are less sensitive to DHT. So hair loss is not about how much DHT you have overall, it's about how your follicles respond to it. Conventional medicine focuses almost entirely on suppressing DHT using drugs. These medications block the 5-alpha reductase enzyme very aggressively. While that can reduce hair loss, it also reduces DHT throughout the entire body. And that's where problems begin. DHT plays a role in mood, energy, muscle tone, libido, and overall hormonal balance. When you shut it down completely, side effects are not uncommon. The bigger issue is that these approaches don't address why DHT is elevated or why follicles are becoming more sensitive to it in the first place. They treat the symptom, not the root cause. Excess DHT activity is often linked to deeper metabolic problems. One major factor is insulin resistance. When insulin levels are chronically high, ITSTI, mutates androgen activity, including the conversion of testosterone into DHT. This means that diets high in sugar, refined carbohydrates, and processed foods indirectly accelerate hair loss by increasing DHT signaling. Inflammation is another major trigger. Chronic inflammation makes hair follicles more vulnerable to hormonal damage. It also increases oxidative stress, which weakens the follicle environment. In an inflamed scalp, even normal levels of DHT can cause excessive damage. Nutrient deficiencies play a huge role as well. Minerals like zinc are required to regulate hormone metabolism. Zinc deficiency is extremely common and directly linked to increased hair shedding. Without enough zinc, the body loses its ability to properly control DHT activity, and follicles become more susceptible to damage. Stress is another silent contributor. Chronic stress raises cortisol, and cortisol disrupts normal hair growth cycles. It pushes hair into the resting phase prematurely, which leads to shedding. Stress also worsens insulin resistance and inflammation, creating a perfect storm for DHT-driven hair loss. So when people ask why their hair is thinning, even though they're healthy, the answer often lies in these hidden imbalances. Hair loss is not just a cosmetic issue. It's a metabolic and hormonal signal. This is why stopping the DHT conversion early is so critical. If you can slow down the activity of 5-alpha reductase before follicles are permanently damaged, you can preserve thickness and density. This doesn't mean eliminating DHT entirely, it means restoring balance. The goal is to reduce excess DHT where it causes harm, especially at the scalp, while supporting the body's natural hormonal rhythm. When this balance is restored, hair follicles are no longer under constant attack. They can remain in the growth phase longer, produce thicker hair shafts, and maintain their structural integrity. Another key point many people miss is timing. Hair growth happens in cycles that last months. When you reduce DHT activity today, you won't see instant results tomorrow. What you're really doing is protecting future hair cycles. You're preserving the next generation of hair growth. That's why consistency matters more than intensity. People who wait until their scalp is clearly visible are often disappointed with results, not because nothing works, but because too many follicles have already crossed the point of no return. On the other hand, people who address DHT early often maintain a full, thick appearance for decades. This also explains why topical solutions alone often fail. You can massage the scalp, stimulate blood flow, and apply growth stimulants, but if DHT is still binding aggressively to the follicle, the damage continues from the inside. Hair loss is an inside-out problem. When you understand that DHT is the main driver, everything else starts to make sense. Why hair loss patterns are predictable, why it runs in families, why diet and lifestyle matters so much, why stress accelerates shedding, why some people respond to treatment and others don't. The most empowering part of this knowledge is that DHT activity is modifiable. It's not fate. Enzyme activity can be influenced by nutrition, inflammation levels, insulin sensitivity, and specific natural compounds. When you reduce the pressure on hair follicles, you give them room to recover. Preserving hair is not about forcing growth. It's about removing what's killing it. Once that pressure is lifted, the body often does the rest on its own. Understanding the role of DHT shifts the entire conversation around hair loss. Instead of chasing products and gimmicks, you start focusing on biology. And when you focus on biology, the strategy becomes clear. Stop the silent follicle shrinkage early, support hormonal balance, and protect the hair you still have before it's gone. Pumpkin seed oil works because it targets hair loss at the biochemical level, not the cosmetic level. Instead of trying to force hair to grow, it focuses on removing the internal signals that tell hair follicles to shut down. That's what makes it so different from most products people try. To understand why it's effective, you have to look at how DHT is formed and how pumpkin seed oil gently interrupts that process without disrupting the entire hormonal system. DHT is created when testosterone is converted by an enzyme called 5-alpha reductase. This enzyme is highly active in the scalp, especially in people who experience pattern hair loss. The more active this enzyme is, the more testosterone gets converted into DHT. Pumpkin seed oil contains natural compounds, including phytosterols and delta-7 sterols, that help inhibit this enzyme. When the enzyme slows down, less DHT is produced at the scalp level. What's important here is the word gentle. Pumpkin seed oil does not shut down DHT completely. It simply reduces excessive conversion. This is critical because DHT still plays a role in normal physiology. Completely blocking it can cause unwanted effects, but moderating it allows the body to function normally while protecting hair follicles from constant hormonal attack. This is why pumpkin seed oil is often better tolerated than synthetic blockers. It works with the body instead of overriding it. Hair follicles respond much better to balance than suppression. One of the most powerful aspects of pumpkin seed oil is its zinc content. Zinc is a master mineral when it comes to hair health. It's required for cell division, DNA synthesis, and protein production, all of which are essential for hair growth. Hair follicles are among the fastest dividing cells in the body, so they are extremely sensitive to zinc deficiency. When zinc levels are low, hair follicles weaken, shedding increases, and the scalp becomes more vulnerable to inflammation. Zinc also helps regulate androgen metabolism. Without adequate zinc, the body loses control over how much testosterone is converted into DHT. So zinc deficiency doesn't just weaken hair structurally, it worsens the hormonal environment that causes hair loss in the first place. Pumpkin seed oil provides zinc in a highly bioavailable form, especially when consumed with healthy fats. This helps restore mineral balance, which is often overlooked in people dealing with thinning hair. Many individuals have normal blood tests but still have functional zinc deficiency at the tissue level, particularly in the scalp. Another critical benefit of pumpkin seed oil is its antioxidant profile. Hair follicles are extremely sensitive to oxidative stress. Free radicals damage the cells that regulate hair growth cycles, shorten the growth phase, and accelerate follicle aging. Oxidative stress also amplifies inflammation, which further increases sensitivity to DHT. Pumpkin seed oil contains antioxidants that help neutralize free radicals and protect the follicle environment. When oxidative stress is reduced, follicles can remain in the growth phase longer and produce thicker hair shafts. This protective effect is especially important as we age because antioxidant defenses naturally decline over time. Inflammation is another silent driver of hair loss that pumpkin seed oil helps address. Chronic, low-grade inflammation in the scalp disrupts normal hair cycling and increases follicle sensitivity to hormones. Even moderate inflammation can make follicles react more aggressively to normal DHT levels. Pumpkin seed oil has anti-inflammatory properties that help calm the scalp environment. When inflammation is reduced, blood flow improves, nutrient delivery increases, and waste products are cleared more efficiently. This creates conditions where hair follicles can function properly instead of remaining stuck in a constant state of stress. Circulation is another key piece of the puzzle. Hair follicles need oxygen and nutrients to grow, and poor blood flow limits both. Pumpkin seed oil supports nitric oxide product ion, which helps relax blood vessels and improve circulation. Better circulation means more oxygen, more minerals, and more amino acids reaching the follicle. This is especially important for people who sit for long periods, experience chronic stress, or have metabolic issues that impair circulation. Improving blood flow doesn't force hair growth, but it removes a major bottleneck that prevents follicles from performing optimally. There's also a strong connection between pumpkin seed oil and prostate health, which further supports its role in DHT regulation. The prostate is another tissue highly sensitive to DHT. Pumpkin seed oil has been used traditionally to support prostate function by reducing excessive DHT activity in that tissue. This same mechanism applies to the scalp. Clinical studies have shown that individuals using pumpkin seed oil experience increased hair count and improved thickness over time. These results don't happen overnight, and that's actually a good sign. The oil is working through natural growth cycles instead of artificially stimulating hair. Hair grows in phases. The growth phase can last several years, but when follicles are under hormonal stress, that phase shortens. Pumpkin seed oil helps extend the growth phase by reducing DHT pressure, improving nutrient delivery, and calming inflammation. Over time, this leads to visibly thicker hair and reduced shedding. Another overlooked benefit is the fatty acid profile of pumpkin seed oil. Healthy fats are essential for hormone production and cell membrane integrity. Hair follicles rely on healthy cell membranes to communicate growth signals and respond to nutrients. Without adequate healthy fats, follicles become rigid and dysfunctional. Pumpkin seed oil provides essential fatty acids that support flexible, healthy cell membranes. This improves how follicles respond to growth signals and nutrients. It also supports scalp hydration, which is often overlooked but critical for follicle health. When applied topically, pumpkin seed oil may provide localized benefits as well. Massaging it into the scalp can help improve circulation, deliver antioxidants directly to the follicle environment, and potentially reduce local DHT activity. While internal use addresses systemic factors, topical application may enhance results by supporting the scalp directly. Consistency is where most people fail. Pumpkin seed oil works best when used daily over several months. Hair growth is slow, and follicles need time to recover. People who stop after a few weeks often assume it doesn't work, but what they're really doing is quitting before the biology has time to respond. Another reason pumpkin seed oil is so effective is that it addresses multiple causes of hair loss simultaneously. Most people focus on one angle, such as hormones or nutrients, and ignore the rest. Pumpkin seed oil supports hormone balance, mineral status, inflammation control, oxidative protection, and circulation. All at once, this multi-target approach is essential because hair loss is rarely caused by a single issue. It's the cumulative effect of several imbalances occurring at the same time. When you correct multiple weak points together, results are far more noticeable and sustainable. Pumpkin seed oil is not a miracle cure, and it doesn't resurrect dead follicles. What it does is protect vulnerable follicles from further damage and create an environment where weakened follicles can recover. That distinction is important because it sets realistic expectations. The people who benefit most are those in the early to moderate stages of thinning. In these cases, follicles are still alive but under stress. Remove the stress, and the follicle often resumes normal function. What makes pumpkin seed oil stand out is that it respects the body's intelligence. It doesn't force growth. It doesn't override hormones. It simply removes obstacles. And when the obstacles are gone, the body often does exactly what it was designed to do. Hair health is a reflection of internal balance. Pumpkin seed oil works because it helps restore that balance at multiple levels. That's why it has remained relevant despite countless new products entering the market. Biology doesn't change, and solutions that align with biology tend to last. When used consistently and combined with proper nutrition and lifestyle habits, pumpkin seed oil becomes a powerful tool for anyone looking to slow hair loss, protect existing hair, and support long-term scalp health. Hair regrowth doesn't happen in isolation, and this is where most people get frustrated and give up. They try one supplement, one oil, or one topical product and expect it to override everything else going on in their body. But hair follicles don't live in a vacuum. They respond to hormones, nutrients, blood sugar levels, inflammation, and stress signals all at the same time. If even one of those factors is working against you, hair growth slows down or stops, no matter what product you're using. This is why pumpkin seed oil works best when it's part of a bigger picture. On its own, it can help reduce excess DHT and support follicle health. But when it's combined with proper nutrition, stable blood sugar, mineral balance, and stress control, the results are dramatically better and more sustainable. Let's start with nutrition. Because hair is one of the most nutrient-demanding tissues in the body, hair follicles are constantly dividing and rebuilding. That process requires raw materials, especially protein. Hair is made primarily of keratin, a protein structure. If your diet is low in high-quality protein, your body will prioritize survival over hair growth. That means hair growth slows, shedding increases, and regrowth becomes difficult. Many people assume they're eating enough protein, but when you actually calculate intake, it's often far below what's needed to support hair, muscle, and hormone production. Without adequate protein, even the best DHT blocker won't work because the follicle simply doesn't have the building blocks to produce strong hair. Minerals are just as critical. Zinc, iron, magnesium, selenium, and copper all play roles in hair growth and hormone regulation. Zinc deserves special attention because it regulates enzymes involved in hormone metabolism, including those that affect DHT. Low zinc levels increase hair shedding and make follicles more sensitive to hormonal stress. This is why pumpkin seed oil, which contains zinc, works even better when overall mineral intake is adequate. Iron deficiency, especially in women, is another major but often overlooked contributor to hair loss. Without enough iron, oxygen delivery to the hair follicle drops. Hair follicles are extremely sensitive to low oxygen levels. When oxygen is limited, the growth phase shortens and shedding increases. No oil or supplement can override a basic oxygen deficit. Blood sugar balance is another huge piece of the puzzle. Chronically elevated blood sugar and insulin levels increase androgen activity, including DHT. This means that diets high in sugar, refined carbohydrates, and frequent snacking directly worsen hair loss by amplifying hormonal signals that damage follicles. When insulin stays high, inflammation increases. Inflammation makes hair follicles more reactive to DHT and disrupts normal growth cycles. This is why people with insulin resistance, prediabetes, or metabolic syndrome often experience accelerated hair thinning. Stabilizing blood sugar by reducing sugar, refined grains, and ultra-processed foods takes pressure off the hormonal system. When insulin levels normalize, androgen activity decreases, inflammation drops, and hair follicles become less hostile environments. Pumpkin seed oil can then do its job more effectively because it's no longer fighting against constant metabolic stress. Stress is another factor that cannot be ignored. Chronic stress raises cortisol and cortisol. L is directly toxic to hair growth. It pushes hair follicles out of the growth phase and into the resting phase prematurely. This leads to increased shedding and slower regrowth. Stress also worsens insulin resistance and inflammation, creating a cascade of problems that all converge at the hair follicle. Even if you're using the right nutrients and oils, high stress can completely block results. This doesn't mean you need to eliminate stress entirely, which is unrealistic. It means you need to improve stress resilience. Adequate sleep, regular physical activity, sunlight exposure, and proper nutrition all help regulate cortisol. When cortisol is controlled, hair growth cycles normalize. Another often overlooked factor is digestion. You can eat the right foods and take the right supplements, but if your digestion is compromised, absorption suffers. Low stomach acid, gut inflammation, and poor bile flow all reduce the absorption of minerals and fats needed for hair growth. Pumpkin seed oil is a fat-based nutrient, which means it relies on proper fat digestion for absorption. Supporting digestive health ensures that the nutrients you consume actually reach the follicles. Inflammation ties all of this together. Chronic inflammation damages follicles directly and increases sensitivity to DHT. It also interferes with blood flow and nutrient delivery. Reducing inflammatory foods, especially processed oils and sugars, creates an internal environment where hair follicles can recover. This is why people who clean up their diet often notice reduced shedding even before seeing visible regrowth. The follicle environment becomes calmer and hair stops falling out at an accelerated rate. Regrowth comes later, but stopping the loss is the first win. Consistency is another major factor. Hair growth is slow by design. A single hair cycle can last years, and visible changes take months. Using pumpkin seed oil for a few weeks and stopping won't produce meaningful result. TS. The follicles need sustained support across multiple growth cycles. This is where many people fail. They jump from product to product, never giving their biology enough time to respond. Hair health rewards patience and consistency more than intensity. Another mistake is focusing only on regrowth while ignoring preservation. The most effective strategy is protecting the hair you still have. Slowing or stopping follicle miniaturization preserves density and gives weakened follicles a chance to recover. Pumpkin seed oil excels at this when combined with the right internal environment. It's also important to manage expectations. Hair regrowth doesn't always mean dramatic new hairlines or instant thickness. Sometimes the biggest success is reduced shedding, thicker existing hairs, and slower progression of thinning. Over time, these changes add up to a visibly healthier head of hair. Age also plays a role, but it's not the deciding factor people think it is. Hair follicles don't have an expiration date. What changes with age is hormone balance, nutrient absorption, and inflammation levels. Address those factors and hair can remain healthy far longer than most people expect. When everything works together, hormones stabilize, nutrients reach the follicle, inflammation drops, and blood flow improves. At that point, hair growth becomes a natural outcome, not something you have to force. Pumpkin seed oil fits into this system because it supports balance rather than domination. It helps regulate DHT without shutting it down, supports mineral status, calms inflammation, and improves circulation. But it shines brightest when the rest of the system is working with it, not against it. Hair loss is often the body's way of signaling that something is out of balance internally. When you listen to that signal and correct the underlying issues, hair often responds. Not because you chased growth, but because you removed the barriers preventing it. The real breakthrough isn't a single oil or supplement. It's understanding that hair health reflects overall metabolic and hormonal health. Pumpkin seed oil is a powerful tool, but the foundation is always nutrition, blood sugar control, stress management, and consistency. When those pieces come together, hair follicles finally get the message that it's safe to grow again.